Hey everybody, this is Joel and Paul from movingtomexi.co. Bienvenidos a nuestro canal. Bienvenidos to the Upper East Side. We're way on the Upper East Side, by the way. And bienvenidos to La Esquina del Sabor. Actually, La Esquina. La Esquina, not, well, like, I think it's just the play on Esquina.
Right.
But it's La Esquina del Sabor. Anyways, we're way on the Upper East Side, a little bit out of town, but not really, we're really still in town. We're not out of town, but it's kind of getting towards the outskirts. And what day is it today, Paul? It is
Taco Tuesday!
Woo!
Esquina.
Yeah.
What does that mean, esquina?
Well, esquina is corner, right?
Yeah.
And
a lot of restaurants have that name, right? Because it's the corner place.
the corner place.
Yeah.
Which it is.
It literally is.
Is on a corner. Well, we're going to talk about how Mexico is going to become the economic superpower over the next 40 plus years. It's already starting. So we're going to go through some of the key reasons why. Basically, Mexico is going to dominate the U.S. and Canada, as well as other Western nations. Like, and that goes as far into Europe and other places, and also taking over for China as the #1 place to manufacture in the world. It's happening now, and I think we need to be on top of these trends, because when you're looking at places to spend the rest of your life or move some of your money, you have to have a valid reason. You have to have a thesis behind it, right? And I think over the past several decades, Mexico's been always kind of like beat up a little bit as not a very good place to invest your money, or not a very good place to live.
Yeah.
And I think that's just going to change over time, just because of many things, which we'll chat about over tacos. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Vámonos. So if I said to you that Mexico was on track to become one of the wealthiest nations in the world by the mid-century, like so 2050-ish, right? So which is not really that far away in the grand scheme of things.
Not really.
Less than 30 years. Like, what would your first reaction be?
For me?
Yeah.
Personally, I would say, okay, it sounds about right.
Yeah?
Because the way I see it, I have the perspective of being here, right, for the last, living here for the last 7 years. So it's I see the construction and the development and everyth's growing.
Right.
And then I look back at the States and Canada, and I think, just totally different vibe.
Right.
Right? Like, from what I see, I could be wrong, but from what I hear, what I see in the news and back at home, it feels like things are just sort of, the vibe is not growing.
Yeah, when you talk to people about what their reality is and when you see what the government promotes, there's two different things going on. So it's either we're living in one of those matrices where there's a reality and another reality, or we're just being fed propaganda and then we just believe it, right? Like, the jobs reports came out last week in the US, like the most robust economy ever since like the 1960s. And meanwhile, you see like record number of people in food. The U.S. was having like the most robust economy since like the 1960s, 1969 exactly. And inflation now is supposedly kind of under control, like steady at like 6.9%. But they took out that finicky energy and food prices, which are so volatile. But what do we as consumers use on an everyday basis? Energy and food. But they've taken that out of the CPI, like the Consumer Price Index. So they're saying inflation's lower because the fact that eggs have tripled, meat has tripled, and gas is like, because that's just volatile, and all that's going to come down in the future. Right? But it's funny how people believe the propaganda, right? But they have no choice. They have to do it because the economies are built on this real loose money and this perception that, I'm going to say North America, Canada, the United States, has just these robust economies that will always be growing. That it will never face a permanent tough time, right? And I just think that's probably not really wise to consider that there could be another option those dynasties might be coming to their end. And you look at one of the biggest trends right now is that a lot of manufacturing is moving from China into Mexico, and it started. Here's the other thing: China's not stupid. They've been like investing billions of dollars in manufacturing in Mexico, right? So that they can bypass these changes that were inevitably going to happen to them, right? So he's like, why is the first and most important reason this is happening? And the one big thing happening here is the population growth in Mexico. It's steadily increasing.
Yeah.
Right? And the US, Canada, and most of Europe, the birth rate is steadily in decline.
Yeah.
And you have a bunch of things going against you in that, right? You have a lower younger population, right? You have a growing older population. I know.
Jeez. Gracias.
Gracias. Wow. Gracias. Like, come on.
Those are beautiful.
Isn't that wild?
My chilaquiles.
I'm gonna ponder that for a while. I'll finish my last thought, but
Okay.
no. I'm totally distracted by the food as well, but that growing population means a growing workforce, right? A growing workforce means that we have an acceleration of the movement of money, right? Like, so I buy a service from you, you buy a service from them. Like, it's this acceleration of spending, and when you have an accelerating population, you have an accelerating economy, and that's predicted now. Like, I think there's 128 million people in Mexico, and it's the 11th most populous country in the entire world. And they say by 2050, it's going to surpass 150 million people.
Yeah.
And that's just by natural growth.
Right.
That's not even to take into consideration the potential of increased migration because of Mexico's thriving and growing economy. Does that make sense? So I think when you combine that again with the declining birth rates across the world, Mexico is like super.
It's on the up and up.
It's positioned to really take advantage of those demographics. So let's have a bite and see what's going on here.
So Joel's having a mollete, which is basically a piece of it's like Mexican bread, a bollillo. How do you say that?
Yeah.
Bollillo. And they usually have beans, cheese, and whatever else you want to put on there. This one looks like it's got crema, cilantro, cebolla,
And cheese, yeah. And I like when they fry the cheese so it gets
a little crusty. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to maybe get a fork and a knife though. Yeah, so
Provecho.
this is one of the best molletes I've ever had. I like El Porton, but this is a better mollete.
Okay. Portones good molletes.
They do, but
This one's even better.
there's something going on here.
Okay.
I think it's just the extra cream and that crispy cheese.
Looks awesome.
Yeah. Well, we're done our dinner, or sorry, our lunch,
Yeah.
or I guess our breakfast. I don't know. What is it?
I think it's brunch.
Yeah, brunch. We'll call it brunch. My mollete was delicious.
Yeah.
I ate one, and I'm taking one home for NJ or back to the office.
Yeah.
And you're just finishing
I'm
up
still-
your
I'm still
chilaquiles.
eating, yeah.
So you can hold the camera while you eat. You can't see this, but Paul is chowing down.
Yeah, and I'm a professional now at this, holding the camera while eating.
That's funny. So, one of the other reasons why Mexico is also well positioned is its position. It's where it's located, right? So it's right smack dab in the middle between all of Latin America and its second largest trading partner, which is the United States of America. Which it's kind of interesting that it's not the largest trading partner.
Who is the largest trading partner?
For Mexico?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look. I have to confirm that, but perhaps what I'm remembering is Mexico is the United States' second largest trading partner. But it could be that the United States is Mexico's
be.
largest trading
Yeah.
partner. But anyways, regardless, I mean, it is perfectly located geographically for access to both the United States and of course Canada in the north, and all the way down into the south. And Mexico's made substantial, improvements in all of its transportation infrastructure. Everything from shipping ports to freeways to new airports. So they have essentially access, to all over the world.
Right.
But even from land, being in central Mexico and distributing all the way into the States and Canada, those highways. Well, now that you've driven them,
Yeah.
like they've been improved so dramatically.
Big time,
right?
yeah.
So way easier to get. Gracias. So that's our bill there, Paul.
Yeah. We've got,
$195.
so we both had like,
Two full
delicious
breakfasts and a drink for $10. Get your butts down here and visit these guys. You can't go wrong. The food is
Yeah.
delicious. The price is good. So yeah, like based on where it is located, very strategic. Also, by virtue of that economic growth, like Mexico's GDP now is like 1.3 trillion, and it's expected to continue to grow at a pretty rapid pace. But right now, it's even the 15th largest in the world. So that's another thing. Like, so if you probably just ask someone randomly, I don't think they would think that Mexico's the 15th largest economy in the world. Just by virtue of what generally people think about Mexico. It's like just like a poor country that has nothing going on other than beaches and tourism, right?
yeah.
Now the service sector is still high, like that's 61% of the Mexican GDP. But manufacturing is at 25, but they're expecting that the service industry is going to kind of like shrink a little bit, and then that manufacturing is going to kind of start growing to about 35%. And once it gets over 35%, it's really going to start taking off. And I think I've talked about this in other videos before. So the GDP is the one thing, but the debt to GDP is the other, right? So you got, so this is like your total government debt as a percentage of the gross domestic product. Okay. So meaning their country produces $1.3 trillion a year in gross domestic product, basically services, manufacturing, everything, right? That's really the revenue of the country. You could look at it in that way. But they only have $500 billion worth of debt. So their debt to GDP ratio is like right now under 50%.
Yeah.
And these numbers change all the time, but so maybe it's 55, maybe it's 45, but generally speaking, it's very, very healthy. Whereas Canada and the States right now, Canada's debt to GDP is something like 150% and heading towards 200%, meaning the amount of debt it has is going to double the amount of income that it's producing.
Yeah.
So like, put it in a very simple terms, if I'm making $100,000 a year, right, but I take on $200,000 worth of debt, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how do you ever get out of that?
No, that's not good.
Right. But what, the Prime Minister and the President would always say is like, well, we have record low interest rates that are here to stay forever. That's not going to happen because it's easy to say that until inflation hits you in the face with a shovel. And now interest rates are steadily going to be trending up, probably for the next decade or so, just to keep inflationary pressures under control. So,
If you're somebody who's thinking about moving to Mexico or investing in Mexico, I mean, everything that you're saying right now tells me it's a good idea.
It's a good idea to at least diversify. Like, I'm not a proponent of putting all your eggs in one basket.
Sure.
And like, I definitely have some investments back in Canada. I've got some cash in my retirement savings account. I've got, some real estate there. So, you never know what's going to happen. I don't maybe that'll get wiped out in Canada, right?
Yeah.
Because the dollar will get wiped out, and so the cash I have in the bank will be worthless. But at least maybe the real estate I have will offset the cash that I have that is now worthless. I'll have real estate that is actually worth something, right? And in Mexico, we have cash here, but we also have a lot of real estate. Plus, we have our businesses that are spinning off cash. I like where I am right now, and I kind of see the next 30 plus years of my life when I'm in my 80s, is that we're sitting pretty comfortable here with a pretty good net worth just based on the investments we've made today, which inevitably my family takes over, right? Like my kids and then their kids, and we're keeping it in the family, building a family business that can be passed on through the generations. So I am very bullish on Mexico, but anything can happen in the world, right? Geopolitically, the world could go to war, and then all bets are off, right? But what can we do? It doesn't matter where you are.
At some point, if that happens, it happens. You can't really plan for that very much, other than like have a garden.
Basically, that would be about it.
Yeah, because but it's good to be optimistic. Keep going, right? Like keep don't think that way.
Yeah.
Because what's that going to do for you? Nothing, right?
Absolutely zip.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd close with maybe 2 more points, and then I'm kind of looking at some of my notes, and I could probably continue the conversation in another video. If people are interested to hear more as to why Mexico is going to become an economic super powerhouse by mid-century, so kind of like 2050 and beyond. I love that topic, so I'd like to continue talking about it. But the last 2 things were just how the government has basically improved the whole tax policy and infrastructure, right? So they're capturing more tax revenue right now. So without tax revenue, a government is going to be stifled. They have to actually borrow money to spend on programs, but they're actually revamping their entire tax system to make it more easy for foreign investment to come into Mexico, and also more easy for the government to capture taxes in Mexico as well. So that is going to play a big part. And then meanwhile, China, right, is just coming to the end of that glory, right? Because a lot of their costs have gone up. Their labor rates are higher than Mexico's, right? The skill rate, when compared to a Chinese worker to a Mexican worker, the Chinese worker is way lower. So the Chinese worker is making more money, but has higher costs of living. The Mexican worker is making less money, but comparatively speaking has lower cost of living than the Chinese worker, but the Mexican worker is more skilled, right? So you kind of add this tax thing, what the government's changed all the policy, getting more revenue into the coffers to spend on government programs, which also helps boost the economy. And then you have this population growth that we talked about. Then you have this highly skilled market of Mexican workers that's just going to really, really ignite this Mexican economy. So the fundamentals are there. It's all the recipes for a perfect storm are in place for major economic growth for this country. Kind of like where the U.S. was in the 50s, where things were just
set up,
just starting to cook, right? And but then they were doing the U.S. was manufacturing goods. They were distributing. Now they're more of a service and technology country, and Mexico is taking that over.
Right.
And I don't know. My bets are on Mexico.
Okay.
Where's your bets? Comment below. I'm always interested to see those comments because I know definitely we're going to hear, because there's good and bad, but there's always the people who are never would I ever go to Mexico, and the cartel's going to take away my business and my money and all that stuff. And
that's okay. I don't mind that idea because it's good for us. We get to enjoy it.
Yeah, there you go. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for joining us for another Taco Tuesday. You've got to come down to La Esquina
de Sabor.
Here in Bucerias. We'll put a little link in the description. If they have a Facebook page, we'll put that. If not, we'll put the Google link to the map. But come down here and have breakfast or lunch.
Yeah, on the weekends, I'm not sure.
They have brunch or something.
They do a buffet. Yeah, they do a buffet.
On Saturdays.
All you can eat.
We got to do that. We should shoot a video on that one day.
Danielle and I have come.
Oh, you have it? Yeah. It's really good?
Yeah, it's good.
Awesome. All right, everybody, on that note, we're going to sign off here. Thanks for joining us. Nos vemos hasta luego. Adiós desde el Upper East Side, aquí en Bucerias, la esquina del sabor.